Good afternoon. This is Barbara Brandt, Director of the National Center for Interprofessional Practice and Education. Today, I want to welcome you to our third in the series webinar on the Accelerating Initiative, which is Accelerating Interprofessional Community-Based Education and Practice. Today's webinar is Accelerating Initiative, Bridging Practice and Education in Community-Based Complex Care through Interprofessional Student Hotspotting. I'm Barbara Brandt, and I'm joined by Carla Dieter, who is the coordinator of the Accelerating Initiative and coordinator of Nexus IPE programs here at the center. Our speakers today are Sarah Hart. She is the Vice Chair of Interprofessional Student Hotspotting, Associate Professor, and Director of Student and Community Engagement at the University of Utah College of Nursing and a Fellow of the Academy of Health Sciences Education. Kyle Turner, PharmD, is the Chair of the Interprofessional Student Hotspotting. He's Assistant Professor at the University of Utah College of Pharmacy. He is a clinical pharmacist at the University of Utah Health. This is our disclosure statement. This is a jointly accredited program, and none of us have conflicts to disclose. So with that, I will kick this off and then turn it over to Carla. After completion of the webinar, the participants will be able to discuss how Nexus IPE team was able to implement an academic practice partnership called the Nexus. They will describe how a team of students and health professionals actively learned and worked together with people to improve health and well-being in the community. They'll discuss their lessons learned, and they're going to describe application of a tool that they used to that led to the success of their program. So Carla, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Barbara, and welcome everyone. This slide is one that we put in all of our presentations. It's interprofessional education occurs when two or more professions learn with, from, and about each other to enable effective collaboration and improve health outcomes. There has been a call for action, and so what the National Center terms as the Nexus is when healthcare education and healthcare delivery must be simultaneously designed to better integrated and more interprofessional while demonstrating outcomes. So we continue to really uplift this definition of the Nexus, and we're looking forward to hearing our colleagues from Utah describe how they were able to do just this. Next slide. This accelerating initiative, in 2016, we had 4 private foundations that came together, and the John A. Hartford Foundation, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Josiah Macy Jr. Foundation, and the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation came to the National Center for Interprofessional Practice and Education with a vision to advance the 2010 Future of Nursing Report, which outlined major recommendations for the role of nursing in the development and leadership of emerging collaborative models. And then the follow-up 2015 progress report on the IOM report on the future of nursing documented progress in implementing those 2010 recommendations. So both reports strongly highlighted the need for IPE in settings other than acute care. So these partners supported the National Center to coordinate a one-time program called the Accelerating Interprofessional Community-Based Education and Practice Initiative. And it was open to all schools with graduate health professions, nursing, medicine, pharmacy, social work, and other non-related professional schools like business, architecture, and law. And with this, we had a national call for proposals, and 16 nursing schools, mostly led by advanced nurse practice leaders of teams, were selected. Their sites all were true community settings. And as you listen to this entire webinar series, you'll see that their settings were varied. and which shows that they're able to apply these principles in many different settings. They had a 2-year cohort, started in 2016. They were given $50,000, which is not a tremendous amount of money, but they also received significant technical assistance for 2 years. And you'll find that the sites also needed to match their $50,000. And you'll find that these sites made a tremendous impact with the funding that they received, and many have gone on to receive additional funding from other sources. So they started off with an institute with us in 2016. They were supported by tools. Every site got a site visit, and we had monthly affinity group calls and coaching calls. We had an external evaluator that was evaluated everything they did. They gave reports to us every 6 months, and which really helped to facilitate evaluating what was going on. And I'm hoping that you'll visit the Accelerating website for more information. This webinar in one slide. The future is interprofessional, and the key is community practice. Again, our focus, and you'll hear this every time, is people, patients, clients, families, and communities. So we're placing that focus there first, not on the professionals and students. So sometimes this is, or many times, this is flipping things from the traditional way that we've implemented programs. What's different, again, is our definition of the Nexus. And with the University of Utah, their approach was community-based, interprofessional, multi-sectoral. Hotspotting was combined with IPE and a grounding in the social determinants of health. You'll find with, as Utah talks about their project, that they started small, and they're now expanding to all University of Utah health programs, which is a phenomenal accomplishment over the few years from when they started. Their outcomes have been deliberate. They've paced their scaling with planned reflection points, and it allowed all partners to ultimately meet their goals. So even though we keep hammering home that you need to start first with the needs of the people, patients, families, communities, everyone is ultimately meeting their goals. Students learn, patients' health is improved, and health system improvements are seen. Some key lessons from Utah are listed here, and the tool that they're going to be highlighting today is called Building an Effective Nexus IPE Team from the Beginning. So I'm going to turn this over to Sarah and Kyle, and they will highlight their program, and we will take questions at the end. Sarah, Kyle?
Thank you, Carla. We are thrilled to be here today, and I want to thank the National Center for this opportunity to present our work, and also specifically Barbara and Carla for the support and guidance we've received over the last 3 years. It was instrumental to our success. So now I get to tell you the story of partnership at the University of Utah. And to do that, I want to begin by acknowledging each of our partners. So our program includes 16 different distinct academic programs at our university, both within health sciences and within our main campus programs. And I'll call those programs out a little bit later. The University of Utah Interprofessional Education Program. This particular initiative was led by faculty from nursing, social work, pharmacy, and medicine, but is inclusive of all health professions. The Housing Authority of the County of Salt Lake, which is now called Housing Connect, was our first and most important community partner They run several Housing First programs, which are residential programs designed to provide permanent supportive housing with wraparound services, excuse me, for chronically homeless single adults. And so they came on board very early, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, how that partnership developed in a minute. The University of Utah Health Outpatient Care Management Program, the University of Utah Health Plans, our intensive outpatient clinic, and then much of the structure, the hotspotting structure of our program came from the Camden Coalition for Health and was initiated through a partnership with the AAMC, who at one time had the Interprofessional Student Hotspotting Collaborative to support academic health centers to engage in this work. So from the beginning, all partners began by identifying our shared goals, and those included building relationships between education, community, and practice. And when we think about community and practice, we very intentionally thought about non-health sectors that we knew had influence over health. We knew that one of our goals was to address social determinants of health and to advance health equity. And we were specifically, from the beginning, looking at individuals who had complex health and social needs, and started with those Housing First residents from the Housing Authority Partnership, and we've expanded into other populations in the subsequent years. So as we identified these shared goals, our compelling vision became to develop community education healthcare partnerships that work at the intersection of social determinants of health and health access for individuals with complex health and social needs. Next slide, please. So I want to provide a little bit of context about this work so you can understand where it's situated within our community and health system. So one of the things that we learned as a participant in the Accelerating Community-Based IPE Institute was that we had to start with putting people first. And it was a challenge to step away from the structures of our systems, the systems all of us are based in, everybody present, and really think about the people involved. But doing so allowed us to collectively identify the needs across all partners and really ultimately allowed all of us to meet our individual goals. So those individual goals represented improving individual and population health, addressing the unique needs of this Housing First population through the Housing Authority, identifying health systems improvements that we could inform, and then guide student learning. And that student learning was specifically around the IPEC core competencies. And what we feel was unique about our work was the development of those core competencies was designed to have an orientation towards community and social determinants of health. So ultimately, all the partners came together around a recognition that emergency services, which we knew this population was using a lot of, are costly as an alternative to primary care. So the cost is not only financial, but the cost is also in health, because we know these individuals are not having the health outcomes they should, given the amount of care that they're receiving. All partners also recognize that making a positive change for these individuals, any individual with complicated medical and social needs, would require careful consideration of social determinants of health. So how did this partnership come to be? It was built with a foundation of an established relationship. And so I want to tell you just a little bit about that before I give you the structure of our program. So in 2015, the College of Nursing and the Housing Authority, specifically one Housing First facility, began to partner to better understand and address an increase in unexpected resident deaths at that facility. And the partnership was just between the College of Nursing and the Housing Authority. We had undergraduate nursing students who were doing needs assessments to better understand what was going on within the facility. And then we had Doctorate of Nursing practice students who were identifying professional development needs and also delivering programs to meet those needs. And about this time, our IPE program director became interested in the Student Hotspotting Collaborative that was hosted by the Camden Coalition for Health and the AAMC. And synergistically, as these conversations began to take off, the National Center put out this call for the Accelerating Community-Based IPE Initiative. And we were able to create a proposal that got enough attention to be funded and is the reason we are here today. So in doing this work, we were able to develop new partnerships, not only among those initial partners, but also with our health system, a new partnership with the Camden Coalition, which holds tremendous knowledge in the area of complex care. We were able to learn how to access health systems data through new partnerships, and also how to build community-based complex care curriculum. So launching this program within the Accelerating Community-Based IPE framework and using the Nexus tools that were provided to our sites, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, we were able to identify really specific linkages among what we call the Nexus, the partners that are engaged in this work with us, everyone at the table, the health system and student learning. And we were able to engage new partners. We over time brought in new providers, payers of healthcare and social services, and holders of data regarding healthcare and social services. And all of this, again, you'll hear me say this several times, was done around the recognition of the importance of social determinants of health and how it interconnected with all of our work. So what did our first core team look like? Initially, our core team included several of our educational programs, including the College of Nursing, the College of Pharmacy, the College of Social Work, and our Interprofessional Education program at the university. And then our community partner, which was the Housing Authority of the County of Salt Lake, now called Housing Connect, and specifically one of their Housing First sites. And we had all of these individuals represented at the Institute at the National Center to help us conceptualize our work going forward. And I think having I'll probably repeat this again, but having all of these partners at that initial planning table was also critical to our success. So some of you may have heard about this Nexus concept, and this may be new to some of you listening to this webinar. It was also not something that we formally understood before we began to take on this work. But what we came to understand was that the concept of a nexus is really at the heart of the work we were seeking to do. We just didn't have the language to fully understand it. So we had all come together with a strong sense that there were important things that we could collectively accomplish, but we just didn't have the proper framework for understanding how to formalize the structures and functions necessary to make that happen. And the Nexus Institute provided us with some of the tools and space that we needed to begin this work. It gave us a chance to give tangible structure to this collective purpose we knew we had, but we weren't quite sure how to achieve. So participating in that institute helped us craft our vision statement, helped us assess the developmental level of our teams, also helped us identify who the key stakeholders were, and most importantly, prioritize our next steps. One of the big changes that came from this work, especially using this new framework, was better understanding the way that this work relates to students and community-based education. Instead of asking community partners how we can work with them to host our students, to facilitate our students' learning, we started by asking our community partners what their needs were, how we could maybe help them before we began to think about how students could be integrated into that work. And by putting the community partners' needs first, by putting those people first, I think we ultimately came up with a program that has a much higher chance at long-term sustainability. So the critical components of this were that what we were able to conceptualize once we knew our partners' needs was a longitudinal educational program. It's a 6-month program. And the nature of the student placement allowed for the students to engage with multi-sector collaboration. So we thought beyond our traditional healthcare training settings. So for us, the key differences in approaching this work, the development of this program through the lens of a Nexus, have been the focus of people, patients, families first, not the course, not the semester, not the learning outcomes, not the provider needs, but really understanding the needs of the people, and then understanding how we can all contribute to meeting those needs. And what we've learned is in the process of doing so, we actually end up meeting everyone's needs. We also learned how to listen to each other and to understand each other's needs, but even more importantly, flex to accommodate changing needs. Nothing is static in our worlds, and recognizing that up front and recognizing the need to flex and preparing to do so has also been crucial to sustaining our work. And then also the recognition that building trust takes time, and maintaining trust has to be a priority. Once you build it, you have to continue to maintain it. So early in our work, I think even before we arrived at the Institute, we began paying attention to the Institute of Medicine's newly published model on the interprofessional learning continuum. And this model, combined with our new understanding of a Nexus, really helped us begin to conceptualize a program that could address all three of these domains: learning domains, health domains, and health systems domains. It helped us focus on the needs of the community and connect the needs of the community with the learning needs of the student and with the system level needs around improving access and addressing utilization. The other really important role this model played for us in our developmental stages is early on giving us a framework for how to design and evaluate our program. And so we revisit this model frequently as we think about how to better understand what we've accomplished, where we need improvement, how we want to disseminate our work. So I highly recommend spending some time with this. I specifically want to call attention to the enabling and interfering factors that are identified in this model. Our work at the Institute was critical for accomplishing these specific, accomplishing the identification of these specific enabling and interfering factors, and also for changing how we think about building partnerships. And I'll talk about that a little more specifically later in the presentation. So this program was designed to be community-based, to be interprofessional, to include multi-sectors, and to address both health and social needs. So leadership on all levels and in all sectors has been essential to our success and our sustainability. The early and continuous support of senior leaders from each of our partners has provided us with access to resources such as time and physical space and funding. Senior leaders who have also been IPE champions have supported this work because they had the ability to see our vision for the program, but also because of their senior leadership, also guide us through some of those practical hurdles that we have encountered and will probably continue to encounter. The leadership expertise of our grass level team really came in the form of program champions. So the leadership qualities of enthusiasm and persistence have been crucial for our day-to-day success and our long-term success. And then our relationship with the National Center has also provided us with a lot of formal and informal leadership training, allowing everybody on the team to grow as leaders. So I've already mentioned some of the benefits of our work at the Nexus Institute, but I want to specifically highlight some models and tools. So the models and tools that we were exposed to and then had access and guidance to use helped prepare us to better communicate among our partners. So everybody at the table, we're all coming from diverse backgrounds professionally. Some of us are focused on education, some health outcomes, some social services. So we were able to better communicate among the partners, but then also better communicate with our external stakeholders. And in doing so, we were able to demonstrate the interconnectedness of our work across all of those domains. And this was really important for achieving buy-in among those diverse stakeholders. And then also working with the National Center leaders and the other accelerating community-based IPE cohorts, or other members of our cohort, helped instill a growth mindset in us that really promoted resiliency. When we saw other people have successes, have challenges, push through those challenges, be supported through those challenges, it really helped us to keep going during those times when some of those hurdles seemed pretty big. Along the way, our thinking about how we build partnerships has been challenged. We really had to change the way we work with those enabling and interfering factors that I identified on the IOM model. We have found that focusing on those enabling factors has helped us stay the course. And the enabling factors that have really helped frame and promote our work include local and national leadership that has been very focused on value, identifying value, measuring value, and responding to value. The growing emphasis in health professions education on ensuring that our next generation of providers understands how to identify and address social determinants of health. The widely recognized need that we need to push IP into community settings if we want to truly promote interprofessional collaborative practice. And the need for better collaboration among non-health sectors whose work intersects with individual and population health. We are always seeking ways to better understand how the non-health sectors can be partners in our work. And then finally, the growing use of educational models that frame student learning in ways that add value to health science or to the health system. We have this opportunity to think about designing our educational programs in a way that instead of inserting students into a system where they might be perceived as, if not actually a burden as they're learning, they actually are learning in ways that add true value to our health systems. And those models have been exciting for us to look at and also to use to structure our own program. So now I get to tell you the story of our program with a few more details. So building on that existing partnership we had between the College of Nursing and the Housing Authority, in early 2017, we launched a pilot team of interprofessional students and Housing First residents to work within the framework of Hotspotting. And I'll emphasize this again later, but Hotspotting is, if you're not familiar with it, is this idea of using micro-level data to identify high utilizers of healthcare, and then using interdisciplinary, interprofessional approaches to bring the needed services to those areas or those individuals, instead of waiting for them to interact with emergency services, where we know their health outcomes are not going to be as great. The work was started by the Camden Coalition for Health and Dr. Jeffrey Brenner, and has been disseminated as an educational tool, and that's how we're using it. So this first year, 2017, one pilot team was critical to our learning and success. And I want to pause for a moment and just emphasize how important and how challenging it has been to keep all partners at the table and to flex to their needs. It's easy to feel a partner pull away and say, oh, this is a failure, but we've been, with some support, we've been able to reframe some of that as the opportunity to flex and to keep everyone at the table, but understand that their needs may fluctuate. And many of you on the call probably can can identify this in your own settings, but in general, universities have this history of kind of one-sided, unsustained partnerships. And it hasn't been easy to change this pattern. People don't want this pattern, but we haven't always found effective ways to change it. And community, so what we have found through just our few years of work, so we have more to learn, but we found that community partners especially need to be at the table and on the leadership team from the very beginning, from the earliest planning stages. So that's some of the learning we took from our first pilot team. And then in late 2017, we used that learning to launch 8 teams of interprofessional students and expanded our partnerships to include some components of our own health system, specifically some of our community clinics and our outpatient care management teams. Half of our teams worked with our Housing First residents and half with patients identified by these new partners. And we're now in our 3rd year, and we continue to operate with this 8-team model. And each year we pause and we evaluate what our options are around expanding the number of teams that we support. But what we have learned through this work and through previous work is that when growth happens too rapidly, it can damage the efforts to ensure sustainability. So we are operating on the principle of data-driven expansion versus enthusiasm-driven expansion. So we continue to operate with 8 teams, and this approach has paid off for us with new partnerships that we believe have great potential to bring financial stability and further health system integration into this work. So what does this look like in a practical way? How do the teams of students, patients, providers, national experts interact to accomplish this work and to align with our vision? So the way this works is teams of students come together for a 6-month longitudinal curriculum. The curriculum is structured in some areas and very flexible, like a toolbox in other areas. Teams of students, interprofessional students, 5 to 6 per team, representing all the health professions and other programs across campus, come together for the first time at a kickoff event, a day-long kickoff event where most of them have not met before. At this event, they learn the basics of hotspotting. They meet their team, they meet their faculty advisors. This year, we had them participate in some teaming sessions that occurred in our university's Fine Arts Museum, so using some art-based teaming work. Each of these teams has a community-based provider or community-based case manager who serves as their team advisor, and they're there at kickoff to help launch this work. And then each week, the teams have structured check-ins and built-in reflection activities. Some of them are online, some of them are in communication formats that the teams decide work best for them and their advisors. Once a month, the teams present their work during a case conferencing session with a national complex care expert, and the Camden Coalition provides these experts and their services are critical to helping the students advance their learning and ensure that their work is patient-centered and driven by the patient's goals. At the end of the 6 months, their learning is consolidated and shared at a wrap-up event. So as we consider growth and working towards sustainability, I want to share another important contributor to our current success. We have a large number of academic programs participating, and this has created broad vested interest within our university setting. And it has also allowed a design where students can participate in multiple ways. So early on, students participated as an extracurricular activity. They said, this is interesting to me, there's elements of this I believe in, I think I can learn something, I want to be involved. And they purely participated as an extracurricular activity. Since then, we have been able to offer other ways of participation, including co-curricular opportunities. And what we mean by that is that students participate via course assignments or to meet leadership hour requirements or clinical hour requirements. And we work with each individual program to design what that might look like and to ensure that the students meet the learning outcomes. And then we've also been able to integrate this experience into the curricula of several of our programs. And on the slide, you can see those by the asterisks. So what we mean when we talk about curricular integration is that they are actually engaging in this as an elective course where they get course credit, or as a clinical course where they're actually meeting select clinical requirements by participating. It's the challenge with this is that because it's 6 months, it spans across 2 semesters, but so far we've had a lot of success in navigating that challenge. Our initial success with this campus community partnership building and the preliminary data from our work, we've leveraged to support additional paced growth. So in year 2, we designed, actually, Sean, would you go back a slide? Thank you. In year 2, we were designated by the Camden Coalition for Health and the National Center for Complex Health and Social Needs as a hotspotting hub. And what this hub status means is that other academic health centers send interprofessional teams of students and faculty and community partners to us to train in how to do this hotspotting, how to build a program at their own institution, and we guide them for a full 6-month hotspotting experience so that then they are prepared to launch on their own independently in following years. In year 3, we were able to add our university health plans as a partner, and this allowed us to further refine how we use data to identify patients and to understand utilization. And now in year 4, we are partnering with our intensive outpatient clinic. And this clinic uniquely provides care management and a broad spectrum of health and social services. And we're especially excited about this new partnership because we believe that it has great potential to be another win-win scenario for everyone involved. So what began as a partnership between one community agency and a single academic program has grown into a full community academic health system partnership with the potential, we hope, to affect outcomes in all 3 of those domains. So, as I said, we hope, and because we want it to be more than a hope, it's critical that we demonstrate our programmatic outcomes and that we use evidence to improve our approaches. So program improvement has been driven by guided interviews, surveys of patient participants, and we combine this with data that's generated by validated tools we use for evaluating patients' health and wellness and for evaluating healthcare utilization and student learning outcomes. Early results suggest student development of IPEC competencies, especially in the domains of teamwork, roles and responsibilities, interprofessional biases, and most excitingly to me, community-centeredness. And our partnership with the intensive outpatient clinic is going to allow us to better understand how participation in the program relates to patient outcomes. The patients who have participated so far have reported improved self-efficacy in their ability to navigate healthcare, and they've also demonstrated an increased use in primary care and a decreased use of emergency services. So the key lessons from our experience include the importance of communication tools and clear expectations among all members. So we accomplished this through early planning, through pilot testing, continuous role clarity, and open and frequent communication, flexible student and program participation, and all of these were critical to our early development and current success. We believe one of our key lessons is that deliberate paced partnerships are a win-win, and so using the wisdom and resources of our local and national partners and respect for changing needs, we've been able to embrace those challenges and at times anticipate design modifications early enough to pivot when necessary. And then also student value-added models of education are high impact. We're very excited about the ability of hotspotting to combine interprofessional education with value to both the community and the health system. And finally, just to highlight a little bit about how the Nexus IPE tools supported our work. The IOM model that I demonstrated earlier really allowed us to conceptualize a successful program and identify those key partnerships. Building an effective nexus from the beginning helped us to identify and structure and then engage our team, and also to navigate those inevitable bumps in the road that we have encountered and that we will continue to encounter. And then the stair-step model for team development allowed us to recognize each stage of our team development beginning at its inception, and it continues to guide us towards our maturity and gives us something that we revisit and aim for as we grow and mature in our implementation. And with that, I am going to toss it back to Carla for the last few slides before we get to some questions.
Barbara, do you want to talk about this slide?
Sure, Carla. This is the types of tools that you heard Sarah describe today, and last week in the webinar with Nebraska. We use these tools to really help people think about what we call the sticking points or the pain points. And we use them as a scaffold, and sometimes we prescribe them. So if we work with partners, we work with people like Sarah and Kyle, we can prescribe one of our tools to help people change their mindset. What Sarah, and I was very thrilled to hear that, is they actually pull out the IOM model and look at it again and again. So that's what we call the scaffolding approach. And you can continue your implementation, keep focusing on the learning and health outcomes, because this work is so complex, it gives you clarity. So that's what the tools are about, and that's the scaffolding model that we built to support community partnerships. So we have time for questions. It's 2:42, it looks like. And we do have one question, Sarah and Kyle, that have come in. But while we're answering that question, anyone who's on the webinar, feel free to send us a question in the Q&A, and we'll take your questions. So someone who's actually said he'd had to step off the call, and so he won't be here to hear the answer, but we always record these webinars and archive them. We actually have quite a number of people who go back to the webinars. So Sarah and Kyle, the question for you is that, did you provide grant resources or dollars to your community partners to be a part of the planning team process? So what was the resource flow in your Nexus team?
We were able to provide a nominal amount of resources to our community partner. And those were really provided through the National Center's grant funding that they gave us, and the match from our own institution, which came from the College of Nursing and from our Senior VP's office through the Interprofessional Education Program. So what we were able to do was bring the community partner with us to the Institute, so cover their travel costs so that they could be there from the very beginning. And then we did provide a small stipend to their case management team the first 2 years to help with their growing role with our students. We knew that it was going to require more work from them to work with our students, and we believed that ultimately it would result in improved outcomes for their residents. But we didn't want to take advantage of that partnership by not acknowledging it. So we were able to provide them with just a small stipend.
Do you want to say anything about resourcing going forward? Since the initial funding that you received, is there anything about sustainability beyond those original grants?
Yeah, So I will say that we are constantly seeking financial stability, and that is why health system integration has been so critical to our future, and why you probably heard enthusiasm in my voice as I had the opportunity to talk about that health system integration. I have talked a lot, and this is work that Kyle has done a lot with. So I wonder, Kyle, do you want to add anything more about financial solvency?
Yeah, I would just say that as we've moved forward and really tried to think about sustainability over the long term, that the partnerships where we're able to have win-wins have been really critical. And I'll point to one that is happening now and emerging with our intensive outpatient clinic, which is a system initiative to help address those with complex health and social needs. So we had kind of worked parallel to each other, but this year for the first time, we've been able to combine and really partner together because the values and the missions really align. And that has been a huge step because they're helping with patient identification, they're helping with some advising of our student teams. So that's been a scenario where they felt there was a win to participate with us, and we felt there was a win to get their expertise and their ability to find those most in need. And I think that and similar relationships will be key as we move forward.
Great. So one of the things, Sarah, that I heard from you that's a common theme in some of the other sites is this talking very openly about the roles and the responsibilities, which is one of the IPAC 4 competency domains. And so I was pleased to hear you talk about that. We also work with these partnerships to really talk about resources and risk together. So blending your team, and then finally, and I would say we're seeing it in this particular program, reaping the rewards together and scale. So again, you're hitting all the high points that we would say, you know, you're reaching the excellence pinnacle here. So congratulations. We have another question, and the question is, it sounds like this is a 6-month program, and for the students, what happens during the other 6 months per year, or is it run twice a year?
Great practical question. This program runs once a year from September until the end of March, and we are consistently questioning whether we have the resources and ability to run a second cohort in the other 6 months. Right now, that is not a reality for us, but it is something that's constantly on our mind. The National Center for Complex Care and the Camden Coalition, who provide a lot of structural support for the Hotspotting program, only support it September through March, but I think everybody involved is considering what the options might be going forward to increase the opportunity for more students to be involved and also to engage with more patients.
So Sarah, what resonated with me, and it's the first time I've heard you talk for a while about your program, is this measured growth. And I love the data-driven growth versus the enthusiasm-driven growth. So I would say, you know, it sounds like you're taking a measured approach to any kind of expansion at this point. So I think that's another thing I would observe. So the
other thing I'd like to add is just the fact that Sarah's partnership with the university health plans is giving them the opportunity for more data. Is that am I correct, Sarah? And with that data may come more opportunities to show their to show outcomes and get others interested.
Yeah, that is correct. I will say one more wonderful thing that has come from the support from the National Center, specifically some of the financial support, is we have been able to engage in some structured dissemination activities. So we have purchased statistician time, writing time, etc., so that we can get this disseminated, and we are deep in that process. So although I only shared preliminary results today, we anticipate over the next 6 to 9 months we will have a lot more robust results. And the more patients and students we engage, the more community partners we engage, and the longer we continue to do this, the more we'll have to share.
Okay.
I'll just add one comment there too about the time frame. We have always been really cognizant of not jumping into patients' lives and jumping out, and how that might potentially feel. So our community partnerships have been key to make sure that we're building on existing relationships. So that happened in the housing authority with the case managers. It's happening at the intensive outpatient clinic now, where even though the students may leave after 6 months, the patients are still connected and have relationships with others. So it doesn't feel like this team jumps in and then jumps out and sort of abandons them. And we've tried to take steps to make sure that that's not a startling occurrence for them, because it's a 6-month program.
Kyle, I think that's an excellent point to bring up too. The fact too that your partnership is very well. You've really worked on your team and your relationships, and how you're delivering this program and this care, and which means that that those partnerships continue, and that your work is continuing. So that's an excellent point.
So we have time for more questions. We do not have any questions that have come in yet. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question? Going, gone. If not, I'm going to sign us off, and just note that in December, our next webinar will be on, there's another question that's come in. The question is for Sarah and Kyle. Do the faculty involved in the effort have supported time?
And the answer is similar to many things, it depends. Every faculty member has been supported in their workload in some format, but much like the way students participate in multiple ways, faculty participate in multiple ways. And also, as we've gone through the last 4 years of implementing this program, we've learned that some ways are better than others, and so we continue to evolve that model. Kyle, do you want to provide any more details?
I think we always wanted to make sure we were trying to give resources where we could. One thing we have learned is that some of the community partners actually serve as the best mentors for these teams in many instances, and so we've tried to also develop a model where people who are really on the front lines of this work are interacting regularly with our students and trying to support that. I will also say one really neat aspect of this is we had someone participate as a student working on a graduate degree, and has now evolved to be a advisor for our team. So that has been really successful and really neat to see that progression of the program occur.
So Kyle and Sarah, this is Barb. If I understand it, based upon the schools, there are various models for how the faculty time is supported. And just my observation is just like the number of programs that are participating, they actually have different models of how they're utilizing the program. Am I correct?
Correct, yes. And I do think that flexibility is one of the things that has helped us develop.
Okay. So we still have time for a question or two. Anyone? If
I
not,
would, I was going to bring up one more point where there was Sarah and Kyle have very nicely shown the merging between building their Nexus team and utilizing the IOM IPLC model, and also the other tool, the stair-step model. And those, the IOM model and the stair-step model will again be highlighted in future webinars. But the nice thing to note is that they're so very intertwined.
so now we're starting to get questions. And we have 5 minutes. Just one question is, do you have more student interest than you were able to accommodate? Kyle and Sarah, do you have, and the next question that just came in said, so what level of learners participate on these teams? And we have 4 minutes. So
Yeah.
do you have more students, and what levels of students?
Yep, I'll take just a quick shot at this answer. We're pretty consistent in being able to fill our teams. So there's a lot of word of mouth advertising and different things. So we usually end up with about the number that we need, close to it, and that's why we've been really thoughtful in our growth. So yeah, so I'll answer that one, and I'll defer to Sarah for more comments.
So I think the question was what level of students participate, and wonderfully the answer is all levels of students participate. We have every health profession program at our institution has had a student represented on our team. Most of them are represented each year. But we also, and so those health professions programs have undergraduate pre-licensure students, students that are like, especially our DNP students who already have an RN license but are in graduate programs, undergraduate medical students, so before they've graduated from medical school. We haven't yet had a medical trainee, someone in residency or fellowship participate, but we are certainly open to that. But then we also have students from our main campus who are, we tend to think of them as pre-professional, but some of them really aren't on track to enter the health professions, but they have an interest in how their own discipline might interact with health, which is exciting for us because of the multi-sector nature of this. So for example, we had a geography student participate because he was very interested in using GIS systems to identify community level needs.
Nice.
Yeah, excuse me, we've had kinesiology students participate. We've had business school students participate. So it really spans the educational levels and programs, and I think there's tremendous benefit for all the other students on the teams and for our patients and community partners when we have that diversity.
Great. So I'm looking at the time. We have just a little over a minute left. And this webinar will be archived so that you can come back and listen to it again or actually share with your colleagues locally. In December, the next webinar is on the 10th at 2 o'clock Central Time. It's Oregon Health and Sciences University, and this is a rural site at Klamath Falls in Oregon. So it's the Klamath Health Partnership and Cascades East Family Medicine with OHSU. They are going to feature the teamness tool that they developed, the ACE-15, which is Assessing Collaborative Environments, which we use extensively in the National Center. So we will hope to see you in next month and very much appreciate your participation. Good afternoon. Thanks, Kyle and Sarah. We very much appreciate your webinar and sharing your knowledge.